Hello, and welcome to yet another board game channel. And we will be starting our inaugural playthrough. We'll be doing the Fantasy Flight Games epic, Eldritch Horror, and we'll be fighting the old one of Azathoth. Chances are, if you're watching this, you already know Eldritch Horror. If you don't, I'm not going to do a detailed explanation of how the game works. You'll just see how it works as it goes along. I will just sum up quickly that it's the world of the 1920s, and a number of investigators will be trying to prevent a Lovecraftian horror from the other realms breaking through and doing horrible things to the entire world. We do so by solving a number of mysteries. Every turn, the investigators will get to do 2 different actions, and you'll see those as they come up. Then they will encounter monsters and other horrible things. And then there will be what's referred to as the mythos phase, in which a card is played in which really horrible things happen. Well, 95% of the time. There are a couple of not bad ones. And yes, we have a limited number of those cards to get through before the game ends, and we lose if we don't finish it. There are a number of other ways to lose, which we'll talk about if they come up, which they likely will. Anyway, so yes, we'll go over the setup. I've already done the setup, so we will talk about all the different investigators and the old one, what all has been done to the board. So yeah, we'll start with the investigators. Now I'll start by saying that I did choose all 4 investigators randomly, and I don't think any of them are ones that I've played with before. Possibly Tony the Bounty Hunter, but the others I have definitely never used. I'll also point out that I've got all the expansions worked in here, except for the most recent one, the Carcosa, because I just haven't bought that one yet. Otherwise, everything else has been mixed in. And our first investigator is the archaeologist Monterey Jack. Our Indiana Jones type. Well, he will be our lead investigator, the one who's going first. As you can see, he starts on the pyramids over in Africa. And let's just have a look at his flavor text and find out a little bit about Jack. Young Jack traveled the world with his father's archaeological expeditions. He acquired the nickname Monterey after a bout of quinine-induced jaundice turned his skin yellow. And I'm very relieved that there's actually an in-universe reason for him to be called Monterey Jack. Once grown, Jack became an accomplished archaeologist in his own right. Now he must explore his own past. His father was found murdered with an arcane sigil carved into the old man's forehead. Here in Cairo, he has seen men wearing this sigil on pendants around their neck. It is time for Jack to start digging. Quick look at his stats there. His lore of 2, influence 2, observation 3, strength 4, and will of 2. He's got pretty decent health at 7, and not bad sanity at 5. And see, his abilities are, as an action, he can discard an artifact to retreat Doom by 1, which is a good thing, because if Doom reaches 0, the old one wakes up, and in the case of Azathoth, we just automatically lose as he devours the world. Or he can discard the top card of the Expedition Encounter deck and perform an extra action. We'll see the Expedition Encounter deck in action later on. Also, after resolving an expedition encounter, he can gain one relic unique asset, and those are generally fairly powerful. Oh yes, his quote, "To find a treasure like that, I'd risk a few poison darts." Yes, Indiana Jones. He is trying to be. Right, he starts with a couple of assets. We'll have a look at those. He starts with the bullwhip, which is a weapon which allows him to gain +1 strength during combat encounters, and he may re-roll 1 die when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. Also, he starts with a treasure map. Oh, just getting that to focus, which is only a trinket. Right, when you gain this card from the deck, place 1 random clue face up on his card. We got very lucky and randomly drew the Heart of Africa, which is just 1 space away from where he currently is at the pyramids. Then, focus. After resolving a location encounter or an expedition encounter on that space, he gets to flip the card. And presumably something good will happen. Alright, next. Next we have Rex Murphy, the reporter. He starts in Juneau, Alaska, way up on space 1. And his backstory reads, "When disaster strikes, Rex Murphy is usually on hand, suffering the consequences. After spending a day with Rex, even the most hardened skeptic will concede that the man is cursed. To survive, Rex has developed an inquisitive mind, trying to keep 1 step ahead of the next disaster. His terrible fortune has more than once exposed him to the monstrous forces that threaten to end this world. He hopes he can get some writing done in Alaska, far away from anything that might go too wrong. Not likely." Anyway, his abilities are, as an action, he can gain any number of assets of your choice from the reserve with a total value less than your influence. You would normally roll dice equal to your influence to gain things from the item deck. For example, that one would cost 4 successes, but he doesn't even need to roll. He just gets, and it seems like he can do it anywhere rather than just on a city space like everybody else. Also, if he does not have a cursed condition, he can gain a clue, improve a skill, and gain a cursed condition. His flavor quote is, "My sources tell me that the world is ending, just my luck." Yeah, he doesn't sound like a happy man. On the other hand, he is very healthy and very sane, with 7 of each. That's nice. Here we go. The rest of his stats, and have a look at those. And you can see the items he starts with. A couple of them are not actually items. We can see he starts with the Lucky Talisman, which is odd considering he seems to be astoundingly unlucky. Anyway, it's a trinket relic that allows him once per round to re-roll all dice when resolving a test, rather than just 1 die at a time by spending clues. He also got to improve any one stat by 1, and given his ability to just acquire items freely equal to his influence, I've decided we're going to increase his influence by 1. But also, because he just seems like kind of an unlucky fella, he starts off cursed. As you can see, Bane, only 6s count as successes on your tests. Usually they're 5s and 6s. It is possible for him to get rid of it when a reckoning comes around, and you will see that eventually. If he gets another curse condition, we flip this card instead, and something even worse happens to him. If he gets blessed, we can just get rid of this instead. That's Rex Murphy, the rather unfortunate reporter. Up next, we have Tony Morgan, the bounty hunter. He starts off in Bogota, Colombia, in Space 7. And his story reads as: Tony's tracked down low-life scum in every lousy corner of the world, but nothing was quite as bad as Innsmouth. Some creep in Boston skipped bail and tried to hide with family in a small fishing village. Turned out family meant vicious fish-like monstrosities that left Tony bloody and half drowned. Ever since, he's found a new kind of dirtbag to hunt. Ordinary mobster or otherworldly monster, Tony will take it down and find someone willing to pay him for it. Now he's got a lead in Bogota. Easy money. And his quote that goes along with him is, "When I find the beast, I'll trap it or put it down for good." His abilities. As an action, he can test his influence, which is only 2 at the moment. But if he passes, he may spend up to 2 focus to gain a clue for each focus spent. Clues are good. They're used for a number of things, including solving mysteries. And when you defeat a monster during a combat encounter, gain 1 focus, which you can then hopefully successfully spend on clues. He's also very healthy. We've got a very healthy bunch from the 4 that I randomly picked, with 7 health and fairly good sanity with 5. There are his other stats. And he just starts with 1 item. In his case, the handcuffs. Before resolving the strength test before a combat encounter, you may spend 1 focus to defeat the monster if it has toughness 2 or less. So we'll send him after all the little monsters to just take them down with ease. And finally, I did pick randomly and ended up with all fellas. Finn Edwards, the bootlegger. He started up in a generic American metropolis up in Space 5. And his backstory is: Finn was making a good living running liquor from Canada to cities all along the East Coast. He never got caught and never lost a delivery. Now he's taken a job in Chicago and gave his word that he could get it done. This time, it won't be alcohol he's delivering, and it won't be the local sheriff trying to catch him. Finn's caught up in some supernatural conspiracy, but in the end he adheres to the same principles. Deliver the goods, don't get caught. Never lose track of the exit or the merchandise. And his abilities are: his special action is you and or another investigator on your space may move 1 space along a ship or train path. So yeah, he can get around a little quicker and help other people get around a little quicker. That'll be nice. Effects cannot cause you to discard your item, trinket, or ally possessions unless you choose to. So that'll be nice. You can't lose stuff, which happens all too frequently in this game. He's also fairly strong and pretty darn sane with 6 of each. There are the rest of his stats, and his starting assets are: he starts off, being a bootlegger. He starts off with some whiskey. You may discard this card to prevent an investigator on your space from losing up to 2 sanity. Useful. He also has a cat burglar in his employ, which means on his turn for an action, he can roll 1 die, and on a 5 or 6, gain 1 item or trinket asset from the reserve. Just like that. But if he ever rolls a 1, the cat burglar runs away. And he starts with a task similar to Monterey Jack's, a courier run. When you gain this card from the deck, place one random clue that corresponds to a city space face up on this card. Ended up choosing the city on space 16. I think you can see it from there, space 16. And after resolving a location encounter on that space, flip the card, and presumably something good will happen. All right, those are our investigators. Next up, let's talk about the old one that we're fighting, Azathoth. There he is, Azathoth. Let's find out a little bit about him. It. Yeah, I think it's probably an it. The idiot god sits at the center of all things, spreading madness and death. Its seeds descend from the stars, threatening to crack the world in half. The Doom track will start on space 15. If that ever drops to 0, he wakes up and we just lose. Other things that are notable about him, when the Omen advances to the green space of the Omen track, you'll see that in action. Advance Doom by 1 for each Eldritch token on that space, and we should point out that we have to place an Eldritch token on that space right away at the beginning of the game. When 3 mysteries have been solved, investigators win the game. When Azathoth awakens, flip this sheet and resolve the world is devoured effect on the back. That's not good. Every old one's cultists are different. Whenever we encounter cultists, it will refer us to the card. And in this case, we will just have to do a sanity check against it. And after resolving it, if win or lose, you lose 1 health and defeat the cultist right away. And yes, the Mythos deck setup, that just tells us what sort of horrible things will happen in each stage. Blue ones are especially bad. They're rumors. They're things that we have to try to get rid of, or they will have ongoing terrible effects. Alright, next up we'll go back to the board and check out a few other setups. Alright, a few things to point out on the board. Well, we've taken out the reference card, which lets us know exactly what happens during different effects given the number of investigators we've got, which is 4. Then, yes, we have placed the Doom token on the Doom track at space 15. We have also put the Omen track indicator on the Omen track. This will move around and bad things will happen. Available for purchase using influence. We have, well, first of all, there's always the bank loan, which allows you to get a little more influence in exchange for getting a debt condition. But available, we have an expedition guide, who will allow us to spend a focus to re-roll a die when resolving an observation or strength test. Oh, when using a focus to re-roll a die, you get to re-roll 2 dice instead of the normal 1. Agent of Secrets, an ally who gives you +1 lore and +1 observation, and you may re-roll 1 die when resolving a lore or observation test. We also have, fortunately, a weapon. Weapons are good. In this case, the Spirit Dagger, and it's a magical weapon. You gain +1 will and +2 strength during combat encounters. Not amazing, but still an improvement on regular combat. And finally, a book of spells. A tome. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 2 spells and discard 1 of them. Free spell. That's good. And when resolving spell effects, you get +2 to your lore roll, which is nice. Other things we had to do was spawn a random gate. Spawned in Sydney. And out of it came a maniac. We spawned a couple of clues. One in Shanghai, and the other one in Tunguska. Tunguska also happens to be where the expedition is. That changes throughout the game. And expeditions are good, because they can retreat doom, or give us artifacts. I drew a blank on the word there. Artifacts are more powerful items, usually. Sometimes useful, sometimes not. And the final thing to do as setup is choose a random mystery to see what we need to do in our first step against Azathoth. The true name. Fragments of Azathoth's true name exist in long-forgotten tomes. It is said that if a person speaks his name aloud 3 times, the blasphemous sound will grant the speaker great power. When this card enters play, place a number of Eldritch tokens equal to half the Investigators. That would be 2, each on a random space. Those ended up in the pyramids, which initially looks lucky, but not especially. And the other one is in Arkham. As an encounter, an investigator on a space containing an Eldritch token may attempt to find information about Azathoth's true name. It may spend 2 clues to place that Eldritch token on this card. So even though Jack starts on an Eldritch token, it doesn't do him much good because he doesn't have any clues yet. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are Eldritch tokens on this card equal to half the Investigators, so 2, solve the mystery. And we get to move on. And there is just one last thing to cover on the setup. And that is, we've chosen a random Prelude. These are little extra things that randomize the game a little bit more at setup, just to give it a little extra flavor. Sometimes marginally helpful, usually not. So we chose Rumors from the North. A chill wind makes its way down from the frozen Arctic tundra, and with it comes something much worse. Rumors of cannibalism and strange sightings on the edges of civilization are on the lips of every passerby, even as their breath turns to a frozen mist before them. The signs all point to one thing. Ithaca, the harbinger of endless winter, is stirring. So what we had to do for that was, before setting up the Mythos deck, we took out the Windwalker Rumor card to make sure it didn't go in the Mythos deck. Afterwards, after resolving setup, if Ithaca is the Ancient One, which he's not, so we didn't advance the Owen by 1. Yes, if not the Ancient One, place the Windwalker Rumor Mythos card in play with 6 Eldritch tokens on it. The Rumor card in question points out, the weather grows worse. Snow and ice cover cities that have never seen such weather before in their history. Ongoing rumor. When this card enters play, spawn the Windwalker epic monster on space 4. When it is defeated, solve this rumor. So here it is here up on step 4. Looks very much like a large Sasquatch or Wendigo. And this is what we're going to have to deal with if we want to fight it. It could potentially do 2 sanity damage to us and 2 health damage to us, and we only attack with a strength -2. Before resolving the sanity test, lose 1 health and 1 sanity unless you spend a clue. Lovely. And the toughness in this case, given our number of investigators, has got a toughness of 6. So this is not going to be easy to take down. Why should we take it down, you say? Well, because if we don't, every time there's a reckoning effect on a Mythos card, we will discard one of these 6 Eldritch tokens from it. Fortunately, we're getting a little more leeway. It would normally start with 4, but the Prelude says to use 6. When there are no Eldritch tokens on this card, each investigator becomes delayed and loses 6 health. Then solve this rumor and it goes away. Chances are that will make us lose the game, because I believe you can lose the game if everybody dies all at once. Normally, if you die, you get to just replace with another investigator next turn. But if we all die at once, that's it, game over. Now, after that, each investigator may gain a hypothermia condition to gain 1 clue and 1 focus. I didn't really want to have everybody do that, but I figured a couple should. It seemed too good to pass up, and I'm not especially worried about the hypothermia because it doesn't really get nasty unless we get a second hypothermia condition. Then we flip the card and the nasty thing happens. We don't actually have the Antarctica board up in this particular playthrough. The old one on the rumor just didn't make it happen. Prelude, rather, not rumor. So I went ahead and chose 2 investigators to have this happen. I did it for Rex, the reporter, so he gets a clue and a focus, as well as the hypothermia, and also for Tony, our bounty hunter. He gets another hypothermia card, a clue, and a token. Alright, so that's what we've gotten ourselves into. And next video, we will begin with turn 1. See you then.